She's coming too.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Well, as we have a couple people still coming in, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us here for Northland Public Library's Author Talk this evening with Mike Bezilla. Glad to have you.
Thank you.
Mike is a children's book author, recently published in March, The Adventures of Michael John, X Marks the Spot. We've got a copy of here, and then actually one of the back table, which you guys can check out as the program progresses, if you want to see it before we leave at the end of the night as well. We're just going to spend some time, talk to Mike about his experience and how writing the book was, and just kind of see what we find out. So let's start with the easiest one.
All right.
How did you get into writing? What brought you to publishing your own children's book?
So yeah, it's a pretty good question, because I think whenever I was young, I definitely wasn't expecting to be a children's book author.
Yes.
That wasn't the case. So just some background on me. I am originally from this area. I graduated from Hampton High School, went to Penn State. I graduated with a meteorology degree.
Penn
State fans.
Yeah, Penn State fans, the crowd, as you would expect.
Yeah. So I graduated with a meteorology degree. So that's not English related at all. And I didn't want to really be a weatherman. I was focused more on the climatology side. I wasn't really into public speaking.
Sure. Yeah. Welcome to your snowy nightmare. Yeah.
So yeah, this was definitely not what I was thinking whenever I wrote the book, but here we are. So luckily, I've already spoken to 100 second graders at one time. So that was a bit intimidating.
Yeah, I have to imagine our crowd here seems pretty welcoming, but I would think that a crowd of 100 second graders is about the toughest audience you can possibly find, isn't it?
Yeah, it was tricky. So yeah, I graduated from Penn State with meteorology degree, and then I started working for a company that's a risk management company out in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, still nothing related to writing at this point. The company itself actually models natural and man-made disasters.
Okay.
And our clients are insurance companies. So like if a hurricane was to come through Florida, and Allstate or something has a bunch of houses in Florida, they need to kind of know how much they're going to lose.
Sure.
And that sort of thing. So finally, that's what the company does. What I personally do though is training. I build e-learning content for the company. So to help people understand the models and how they work. So this finally gets a little bit closer to writing, because I do have to write scripts and things like that for these e-learning content, for this e-learning content. So that's the long answer. How I finally got there was just experience. I'm married, I have 2 daughters, and they kind of were the inspiration for a lot of the things that happened in this specific story. And it was kind of just, I was always doing research without knowing. I mean, I don't know how many books I've read to my daughters, just kind of going through and that sort of thing. And the experience that happens with the main character in that book is basically based off of a real thing that happened with my father, who would always give my daughters a card for their birthday that actually has golden coins in it.
Oh, wow.
So that was the inspiration, and it's gone from there. Okay. Now the second book is more based off, because this is a series. The second book is based off of more of my experiences as a kid. So that's where it is. That's where it came from.
Well, I think that leads us to an interesting question there as well, because I think it's not just, what was the process of becoming an author, is like the why children's books. Mm-hmm. And so it sounds like you're drawing a lot of your inspiration for these stories from your day-to-day life, from the day-to-day life of your kids.
Yeah.
When you're pulling this source material, like, is it one of those things where, because it is so familiar and so intimate, does it feel like it's easier to write? Like, what's the process of putting this story on paper like? What is writing the book like?
Right. So this story, it's funny. I wrote this originally in 2018, so 4 years ago.
I'll leave this open. Sorry.
No worries. So 4 years ago, and then I kind of had no idea what to do next. And I think that's where a lot of people really were. Mm-hmm. And then I didn't do anything with it for about 3 years. And then COVID happened, and then I had some more time. So then I actually looked into it. And that's kind of where some of the, if you guys have the handout, that's where some of these things come in. Readsy was the first website that I kind of found that has a community of writers and illustrators and editors, and that's how I was able to find my illustrator.
Okay, great.
Penny. And the cool thing was she does such realistic life illustrations, and that's the main reason why I ended up choosing to go with her. Actually, I do have an image. So in the story, like I mentioned, my father is basically kind of the catalyst for it. So here's a picture, an illustration from the story itself. So she made this illustration, and then we took that and made the costume for my father. So he literally, yeah, he comes with me whenever I do readings at schools and bookstores, and then he comes in, yeah. So like here he is coming in. This was at Butler Catholic, so he came in, and the kids just, they love it. It's an added thing that they weren't even, thinking about, prepared for.
A little bit like writing a Marvel movie and then showing up with Iron Man.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Never hurts to have a little extra star power on your side if you have that fire.
If the story's not going so well, I feel like,
yes, they're not really into it.
Yeah.
Quick, Dad, come on in.
Enter pilot.
Yeah, enter pilot. A sure way to liven up anything that's going not particularly well.
Yeah.
So was this the first? I know you said that you've been working on this for about 4 years. You had written this a couple of years prior. Wasn't sure how to proceed with the next step. Was this your first attempt at writing a book, or have you written other things prior to this that you would consider working on publishing later, or was this kind of the first step?
This was the first step. Like I said, I had written some scripts for my e-learning content that I've worked on, but this was the first time I actually wrote something.
Okay, well, it seems like it's been very successful. We've got a lovely book here. I had a chance to read it beforehand. It's very engaging. I like it quite a bit. It seems like you've got a good audience pleaser so far if you've been able to keep the second graders entertained. So that's really good.
Yes, yeah, that was a tricky thing. The first class I read to was my 4th grade daughter, and before I went to that, I had my wife with me. She was like, 4th graders, they don't like the story. They're gonna let you know about it. So of course I'm already, like I said, I led with not a huge public speaker. This is the first time I've ever read this book out loud to anybody aside from my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had that in the back of my mind, but luckily it was well received, and they were really engaged, and it's been good so far.
That's fantastic. That's great. I actually had a little bit of curiosity surrounding the illustrations where you found Penny Barber.
Right.
One of the things that we're referencing for people in person, you've got the reference sheet there in front of you that has some resources that Mike had used to work on and publish the book. For anybody who's watching this online, or maybe is watching the recording, we'll see if we can maybe get a list of those resources that we can then give to them later on. But can you tell me more about the process of, I guess, choosing the illustrator? How, I know you said you went with her because of her photorealism and how she was able to produce some of those things. Was there, I guess, other considerations regarding like work that you've seen her do, other illustrations for books? Can you talk about that a little more?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. So whenever I went on Readsy, I was able to basically get a list of illustrators, and it has right with the illustrator some of their illustrations, like their portfolio, a bit of their portfolio. And that's how I kind of went through. I was like, yeah, this isn't quite what I was looking for. And hers were the best that I could find that matched kind of the story in my mind.
Kind of the best fit.
Yeah. And the interesting thing kind of with that was another reason why it took longer was she had already, she had books that are available on Amazon, which I was happy about because I'm a completely new author. No one's going to know who I am, but at least there's a connection that somebody, if they found Penny Weber's books, they could, continue on and see mine as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
So that was part of it. But yeah, she, being already a published illustrator, had about 9 months from whenever I signed the contract to whenever I actually got the first sketches. So that took a lot of, obviously that took 9 months. So that was a long time, but given, like I said, that was kind of what I was weighing. It's an illustrator that has already has published books out there.
Yes, credibility
versus-
behind.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I have to imagine that's a very time in the bottle kind of feeling, because 9 months has to feel like forever. But I imagine it's kind of like having a child. I mean, it happens before you know it,
So
right?
perfect.
So, I mean, yeah, it's one of those things where you feel like you're waiting forever for it to happen. But I guess, that feeling of seeing your book that you've written, that you've had for so long, that's kind of existed in your brain, and seeing it come to life with those illustrations, did it make it more real to you to see the combination of those two? Was it?
Yeah, 100%. I actually, it's kind of funny. I have another
Yeah, please.
item here. So this is what I did after I wrote the story. So basically, it started off something like this, which is literally 2 pages.
Yeah.
This is actually the second story, though.
Okay.
The second one's called Space Race.
Ooh.
If time allows, I could read a little segment of that if you would like.
Some spoilers for our audience.
Yes. So start off like that. Then I literally cut those out and put them on paper. And it's
It's very cool.
this was it. This is what I had for about 2 years. Just a blank things that had the illustrations, had the writing.
For the illustrations.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, I think that's really interesting to see too, because like even in preparing to talk to you about this, I never thought, for example, about the layout of the book, the placement of the text, all those things. And it seems like you've been really meticulous about how some of those things are put together.
Yeah, that was helpful. And then once I actually met with Penny, she was like, okay, what I need is a manuscript. So not just the writing. She wanted illustrator notes. So
Okay.
then I had to go back, and it's always funny. I read it like that, and of course I have just the images in my mind. I saw exactly how it looked, but I didn't think about, well, other people are going to read it, and just like with any novel, you make it up as you go in your mind. So that took some time to go back and then do illustrator notes for each one of the pages to kind of lay out whether it's a spread or if it's that sort of thing.
That process of almost like storyboarding what you've already got in your mind and trying to communicate it to someone that you want to collaborate with.
Yeah, so the final thing that I presented with her was, like I said, it's called a manuscript, and it has the text, it has illustrator notes on each page, so that she's able to kind of put that together, and that's
how we got it to you. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So it sounds like we've got approved at this point. We've had a chance to collaborate with Penny as an illustrator. Let's talk about probably what most people probably see as the most daunting part of this process, which is getting published. So you were self-published for this book.
Yep.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that process? Like, how did you start? How does this work? I have no idea.
Yeah, so, and that kind of came up already.
Yeah.
I didn't think that I had time and the effort or enough time and, to actually go look for an agent and try to do a traditional way of publishing. And what I'm finding, though, is, especially on Twitter, I've referenced that in there as well, that a lot of people, there's been kind of a shift from traditional, going with an agent, trying to find a publisher, doing all kinds of querying and things like that, to self-publishing.
Mhm.
But there's a big difference of what happens once you get there. So to get to the publishing, that actually, I did have help with that. Penny works. So my illustrator works with kind of like a book producer.
Okay.
So she helped after the illustrations were complete, because they were in Photoshop, and I don't have Photoshop. I mean, I'd love to work and do illustrations. That's something that I like on the page there, that top Imagination Explorer, I put that together, but I use a software it's called Adobe Fireworks that doesn't even exist anymore. But
Very technological, very up on the times.
yes, exactly. But my producer, her name is Linda, she actually took the final illustrations. She helped with mocking out. Penny actually did help mock out where the text was going to go.
Sure.
But she kind of got them ready to be then put in. So Ingram Spark was the initial publisher that I used.
Okay.
And it's funny, I was just looking at it today. On there's literally a promo code that's active for everybody right now. So
Wow.
you can
Okay.
literally publish for free. I mean, that's the crazy thing.
Yeah, that's the dream, right? To have a thing that you made in your hands for free, right?
Yeah. So so that part of publishing is for free.
Mhm.
There is some other things that may cost some money, which would be the ISBN. So on the back of every book, you normally see a barcode, but the code is actually a reference to the ISBN number. So that is something you do have to purchase for every book and version of the book. So,
Okay. So if there would
this
be a
is-
second edition, it'd be a different ISBN, basically.
Yes, but even like for a soft cover and a hardcover, it's
Oh,
actually two different ones.
okay.
Yeah. So that's one thing that you still have to kind of pay for ahead of time. But what they do is they offer kind of like you can buy 10 of them at once.
Oh, and so
And
then you
it's
have some for future use.
Much better pricing
Okay.
for that.
Great. Well, and you mentioned a name that I had not heard in our conversation up until this point. You talked about Linda, who was your producer.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about Linda and I guess how you met up with her, how that working relationship started?
Yeah, so that was directly through Penny. She
Okay.
has helped with other authors that worked with her as an illustrator. Then she kind of has helped with kind of getting it. It's that gap between illustrations are complete, but actually publishing sort of deal.
Yeah, okay. So the person who pushes it over the finish line, essentially.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that does kind of dovetail nicely to the next thing I wanted to ask you, which is really, I feel like a lot of people get to this stage, the publishing stage, and they don't know how to finish that, to get it. So short of getting a Linda, like, what's your best piece of advice for someone who wants to finish this self-publishing process? What would you tell yourself if you were at the beginning of this process?
Well, one thing that I didn't do ahead of time was I didn't reach out to any editors.
Oh, okay.
Which this was a children's book. I thought I'd show you 2 pages. One of the things though that is really tricky is punctuation. Especially as I mentioned, I'm nowhere near classically trained in English. So that actually is the reason why I put Fiverr on there. So Fiverr is another website that offers all kinds of collaboration. And the main deal, I don't know, it's funny, I think they started it as $5. So that's why it was called Fiverr. And so you could reach out to people. But so that's kind of the one step that I didn't quite do, I would say, right, was I got my illustrations completed. I had the book already mocked up and ready to go. And then I was like, maybe I really should get this edited. So did that. And it wasn't a lot, but it was enough to
make a difference.
I mean, granted, I'm like, Penny has done amazing artwork on here.
Yeah.
The only thing that I'm responsible for is the text. Well, no,
you say that, but you can't belittle something like that. With that kind of contribution, the story's yours, the concept. I mean, you've done a lot of work here.
Yeah, in the illustrator, of course. But,
yeah, of course.
But once somebody would read the book, that's what I'm saying. I wanted to make sure I at least had a couple other set of eyes aside from family members take a look at it. Sure. So that's what I did with Fiverr. I was able to find 2 different editors. I sent it off to both of them and kind of whenever I got it back. That's whenever I was like, okay, I think we're good to get this now published.
Okay, great. Well, and great advice for the next book that's upcoming as well. So
already edited.
Yeah, look at
first right off the bat.
Mike Bezilla, ahead of the game, guys. I mean, so kind of shifting a little bit from the book that you wrote yourself, one of the things that Katie told me is that you actually write book reviews of your own, of other people's works.
Yes.
Do you think that having, I guess, that amount of access and that much, I guess, like insight into what other people are doing, did that help you in coming up with this story? Does that give you ideas for things? Like, are you seeing like the trends in children's books and where things are heading, or has that not really been relevant?
Well, I would say that it's a little less relevant on the picture book front because I haven't done very many reviews on picture books. I've tried to kind of line up with at least children, younger chapter books, that sort of thing, to get a little bit of that as you kind of were getting at. But overall, I think it has helped just with writing in general because I try to make sure that my reviews are as good as if it was published word for me, sort of deal. And I do actually have one of my, it's very short, but one of my reviews did make it onto the back of a book
Oh,
already,
wow.
which was really cool. So that part of it was, I mean, it's all publicity. So anything that can help get your name out there, sort of thing. That was actually the catalyst. So before I told you there was a 9-month period, right?
Mhm.
So in this time, I got my own website.
Okay.
And that's why I have Wix on there. I got my own domain. So I was like, okay, I've got some time here. What am I going to do until my book is ready? So I thought about it. I was like, well, I like to read.
Yeah.
That was a big thing. And I had done reviews on Goodreads and things like that previously. But I was like, yeah, and once I got onto Twitter, I noticed that was also other people were doing things like that. And so yeah, that's how I kind of helped fill the gap in there. I started doing some reviews. All my reviews are on my website as well.
Okay.
So I have kind of a whole section that's dedicated to reviews and a section dedicated to my books as well. But that helped me, hey, this is something I've been working on, check it out, to help get my name out there and things like that.
Yeah. And I do feel like that's part of, I guess, the modern writing process. I'm speaking as a complete amateur when I say this, but like, it feels like that's part of creating something that's become kind of invisible. As everybody thinks that you make this thing beginning to end, you have the published book, you're done. But that's really not it anymore, because if you're going to be self-published, you have to do your own marketing, you have to do your own social media. And so I guess in that 9-month period, is there any surprising parts of that you feel like people may not necessarily think of when you're putting that sort of thing together?
Oh, I mean, yeah, so I've become a web designer. I mean, I never thought I was going to be, in charge of my own website. So there was that was completely new. The good thing is that Wix is pretty friendly so that was where I got my website. And it is like the authoring tools that I actually use. So authoring is kind of a tricky thing to create my e-learning that I've mentioned. It's my day job.
Yeah.
Has some similarities to the using a website, creating a website. So that was a good kind of background there. But yeah, social media is big.
Yes.
I mean, it's the only way, well, aside from something like this, which to get it out to a much wider audience. And so yeah, that has been big. It's been fun though. I mean, like I said, the author of the book that I ended up getting on the back of her book, I met her on Twitter, and that's how that relationship became a thing. And it's been really cool. So she actually has reached out to me, and I've reviewed basically all of the books that she's put out. I don't know how she's doing it. She actually has like 3 books just this year already.
Wow. That's a production schedule. She's not waiting 9 months for Penny to finish these.
No, luckily she only has a cover on this.
Yeah, she just it's the one picture as opposed to all.
I mean, like, 40,000 words, but
yeah, right.
Just count.
I mean, words are easy. I mean, I'm sure we've said 40,000 words up here, right? Yeah, there's some sort of sure. Well, speaking of words, it turns out I have run out of words. I have accidentally asked you the last question that I had prepared.
Okay.
So I'm going to improvise a little bit for this one. The writing process is a long one. It's arduous. From the beginning to the end, is there any step that nearly made you stop? Is there any part that nearly made you say, I can't do this, and you wanted to kind of give it up at that point? And if so, what helped you push through that? What got you to the other side?
Yeah, I don't have a specific thing. Like in the future, I would like to try to write something that's longer than a children's book. But for me, so far, at least the ideas have continued to come. So with the second book, it's called Space Race. The process has gone, shrunk.
Yeah.
It's really, the only thing I'm waiting on again is my illustrator.
Yeah.
I finished that story, I think it was really close to whenever this book was published. And so, yeah, it's that was a much shorter time frame. And now know the process. So everything's gonna be a lot faster. I actually had hoped to have the second book published already. So
Well, hey, there's all the time in the world. Right?
Yeah,
we
that's true.
have plenty of time coming up. You did mention that these are books that were drawn on personal experience. Do you think as your daughters get older, do you think you'll progress into older material, chapter books, young adult?
yeah, I would like to do that. I do have some ideas. We'll see if those pan out. But it is gonna, to your question right before, it will be interesting to make that transition from like 700 words to
To a much longer.
10,000, 100, or 10,000, 40,000, something like that. Traditional novel length. So that would be much bigger.
Well, it sounds like you have a great support team that you already kind of find and help work with this book. It sounds like they'd be able to help you moving forward as well. So it's great.
Yeah, and so I do have a board book that I've already written. So that's a very short, like that's really short. But I am looking to I actually have family friends that might be able to work on the illustrations for that. So Penny will be good for this series, but I will be looking elsewhere for other illustrations for other books.
So if anybody has a talented pen, Mike Bezilla at gmail.com, correct?
Yeah,
Art samples, stops. Doing any soliciting work.
I have cards. I can.
Yes. And speaking of cards, this feels like a great place for us to take a couple-minute break. You want to get up, stretch your legs. Katie's going to collect cards, right, with questions.
I was gonna say, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit of your next book while I collect.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, maybe we'll see your space race,
Sure.
Michael John.
A little bit.
Yeah.
So, while he reads that, I'll come around and collect your questions, so I'll come to you.
All right, great.
Yeah, so this is kind of, I don't know, in the top.
If there's
third.
any key illustrations and you have like illustrator notes, let me know and I'll just have it.
Yeah, mine.
Yeah, I'll have it for you.
Mine, what's going on? Okay. As I look around inside the box, I see a green button drawn in crayon on the cardboard wall. Under the button, it says, push to start. What could it mean? Push to start what exactly? I guess there's only one way to find out. I slowly reach for the button and close my eyes. There we go. I push the button, but nothing happens.
Ah,
I open my eyes and look up out of the box. There we go. With a jolt, the box starts to shake and roar like an engine is turning on. I'm not in a box. I'm in a rocket race car, and I blast off, flying 1,000,000 miles per hour straight up into the sky.
whoa, that's not where roads go.
Yeah. In no time, I fly past the moon, then Jupiter with its big red spot, then Saturn with its beautiful rings, and finally out of our solar system. I stop the rocket racer in outer space to take a look around. I see galaxies and asteroids and new planets that haven't even been discovered yet. So that's just a sampling there.
Actually, I really enjoyed that. It's got a very, did you by chance read Calvin and Hobbes when you were younger?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, it's got like a real like spaceman spiff kind of vibe to it. I love that kind of do-it-yourself adventure. That's got a great whimsy.
Yeah, that's kind of the whole, in this series, that's the whole kind of idea. Basically, the protagonist just goes on adventures using things around him. And my dad likes to always say, he's like, yeah, I remember you doing that whenever you were a kid. So like I said, it's calling up on stuff that I did whenever I was young and stuff that my daughters are doing, that I witnessed and that sort of thing. So
It's that quintessential story of a kid who gets a toy in a box, and the box is more enticing than the toy is. Yeah.
exactly.
And very timely, especially with the new James Webb features coming from the telescope as well. It's a great time for exploring space.
Yes. I can tell you I planned it that way.
Yeah, and you know what? You did.
And
Yeah, absolutely.
Did.
That's the things for me.
Yeah, so I tried to put it a little bit in order.
Okay.
So that some of the questions, we're going to go for about half an hour. So if we don't get to some of your questions, which some of them are a little bit of repeat, so I tried ordering them a little bit so that makes sense.
Sure.
But if we don't get to your questions, don't worry, I'll make sure to check in with everyone afterward and get your email, and we can make sure to get you some answers or connect you with Mike or whatever works out. That's the easiest way to make sure we get your questions answered.
All right.
Trigger.
All right, here we go. You ready? This is the rapid fire round.
There we go.
Okay, so this is an illustration question, so I'm working with pen. How did you end up negotiating the cost for the illustrator working with pen? Is it a per book kind of thing, or did you do like a lump fee?
Yeah, so it is kind of.
Oh, I'm sorry, not per book, but per book sale. Does she have a percentage of the sale?
Right,
Okay.
so there are no royalties that go to the illustrator, at least in this, in my contract, and from what I've seen, for the most part, it isn't like that. It is a upfront cost,
Mhm.
and you basically, as the book owner, own the
Okay.
illustrations as well. Yeah.
So you have the whole inventory essentially.
Yeah.
Okay.
I actually I have bookmarks with,
Oh, wow.
with the character on there and things like that. Yeah, so it does range. I actually on Readsy, which is, like I said, is a really good resource. They do blogging and things like that. They basically list somewhere between 2,000 to 10,000 for illustrations. So it is pricey, but it depends on kind of what you're doing. So there's 40 pages in the book. That's 20 spreads roughly, and that can kind of determine the fee based on things like that. Yeah.
Sure. And then the other question on here is, have you done anything with Amazon as far as like publishing, as far as like this one's specifically about for the Amazon Kindle?
Yes, I did do that, and actually I referenced that, and I did not say it anywhere in here. So after I published with Ingram Spark, I actually then published again on Amazon through Kindle, which is called Amazon Kindle Direct Publishing, KDP, which is free. The reason for that was with Ingram, it's very nice because it allows your book to be purchased anywhere in the world. Amazon does that as well, I guess, but from the bookstore perspective, they are able to purchase from Ingram Spark and libraries as well. Yeah, exactly. With Amazon, that isn't the case. Actually, if I would have just published on Amazon, I could then buy copies and I would have them. But if I would then take those copies to a bookstore and say, hey, would you like to carry my book? They would be like, that's blasphemy, get out of here.
Yeah.
So
You're
that's
not a
kind of,
wholesaler.
yeah. So that was, I mainly was going to only do Ingram Spark, but the tricky thing with it is that it was then available on Amazon, which is kind of funny how that works. So Amazon then does have access to the book through Ingram Spark. However, since it's print on demand, it always had listed on Amazon that there weren't copies available right then.
Because there has to be a certain number of copies.
Right. So that made it kind of more difficult. And then again, I was just like, it's free. It's basically just the same process again. I didn't talk about that either. You have basically the inside portion of the book and then the cover of the book. And those are the items that were, like I said, in Photoshop that then have to be uploaded into both Ingram Spark and Amazon to then be posted. Yeah. Assembled.
Okay.
Yep.
And I guess just because I kind of finished your file with one thing without kind of going through the whole thing, it's something Katie and I experienced recently with an item as well. Sometimes with books that don't have like a set publishing limit, they have to have a certain number before they'll go through and print a batch of them, basically. So someone may have ordered your book from Amazon and then may have had to wait for another 15 copies before they're all produced and sent out, right?
Yes, I actually had that exact experience with my brother-in-law out in New Jersey. They had purchased on Amazon and they were just waiting and waiting. And then it's like, yeah, but you could get it directly on Barnes & Noble. I purchased the book on Barnes & Noble and had it before my author copies arrived. So that's how for my daughters, the first 2 copies I actually purchased directly through Barnes & Noble, and that's what I opened up, and that that's one of, I don't know if anyone might have asked a question like that, but if I've had that with kids where they would ask, what has been the best experience that you've had so far with the book? And I would say opening the box, holding the book for the first time. Certainly. Yeah. Seeing it, this particular one took 4 years, just 4 years to kind of, for me to hold it, but that was, really rewarding. Yeah.
That's great. Let me start rolling through some of these questions because I realized I was waxing a little poetic. We've got a few of these to get there. So this is about Readsy specifically. The question is, would you call Readsy a one-stop shop for things like editing, formatting, cover design, things like that? Is it a multi-purpose tool?
It is. Yeah. Yeah. The only caveat with that is they do. So yes, they have editors, they have illustrators, there's authors, and you basically collaborate. The only thing is that they do take a fee for this. They don't do it for free. So with each contract that's made on Readsy, they'll take, I think it's like basically 10% from the two people.
Okay. So from both you and Ben.
Exactly.
Okay. Gotcha.
Exactly.
We kind of covered this one just a second ago. Why did you choose Ingram Spark over Amazon? Any additional elements you'd want to talk about as far as like working with one versus the other, as far as pros, cons, things that stuck out?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I'm going to do this time is actually, for the second book, do Amazon first.
Okay.
And the reason for that is that at one point, I actually had 2 listings on Amazon, which was sort of annoying. And then you have to kind of put them together because I did Ingram Spark first. That, like I said, showed up on Amazon, which I was like, great. And then all that happened with it taking so long for people to get their books. So then I was like, well, Amazon, just do that first. Then that way there's the page, the listing for the book will be created.
Sure.
I can then, if they end up doing another page based off of Ingram Spark, I can consolidate that, but it should make everything run a little bit more smoothly.
Well, then you can start to collect, like people talk about how important pre-ordering is, I guess, in the world of publishing right now. You can start collecting pre-orders.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this question is about the cost of publishing versus the cost gain.
Profit.
Yeah. Let's talk about the dollars and cents of it. How has that experience been for you?
It's going to take a while. As I said about for the illustrations, it definitely is not cheap to get the illustrations made. But the book, I mean, as long as I market the book and reach out to audiences and that sort of thing, that it'll get there. I mean, I think one of the things that I've read is that basically people make profit enough to then do their next book. So that's kind of the way that people usually go.
That's the watermark, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And that actually goes well into this next question as well. Can you talk more a little bit about the experience of marketing on social media? How do you find the groups that you reach out to, maybe, for example?
Yeah, I'm still kind of new to this. I did literally in November is whenever I started my Twitter account.
Okay.
So it's fresh. More recently for Instagram, because I just couldn't figure out what the difference was. And maybe someone can tell me, I don't know. But the way that I did it, and I kind of wrote it on here though, is that Twitter, it has a huge writing community. There are basically anyone who's ever published something, I'm sure, probably has a Twitter account and they're trying to use it to help sell and market their book. And then the cool thing with that is, though, you get to meet people from all over the world. I know that my book was actually purchased in Poland. I spoke directly with the person who did purchase it, and she wrote one of the reviews that is on Amazon for it. So it's pretty neat that it's like
it's across the world.
It's so wide where it can go.
A global phenomenon. Yeah.
One day.
Yeah,
like
day.
John.
Yeah. I hear TikTok is the hot thing now.
Yes.
Or at least that's what the kids.
That's what the kids are.
hang out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's TikTok.
I think that age range is a little. It's not quite where.
Not quite young enough,
audience.
but also not quite old enough for what you. Yeah, I got you.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, along with that marketing question, I guess part of it is I want to know, like, what type of stuff are you like posting? Like
Oh, okay.
ad marketing And like, how do you like gain followers? And then my other concern was like, if you were to post like a snippet of like one of your books, like if it's not officially published yet, like can someone just steal your work? If
Yeah.
It's not copyrighted.
Oh, I'm not doing anything with that. I'm not posting
Yeah.
anything about that one. But yeah, like I said, I'm still learning. I post about different events. So like this would be something that I would post about. Any other kind of news things. Like I said, if I have other things going on, like I might, when the illustrations become available, I might post about that just to kind of get the word out there that it's coming, to have the second book coming. Sorry, what was part of the other question?
How did you like gain followers?
Yes, so that one's interesting. I'm at 2,300 followers right now on Twitter.
That's pretty
So
good.
2,300.
That's pretty good.
Some people are probably like, wow, that's a lot. And then other people are probably like, that is nothing. And it is, it's interesting. I mean, like Facebook friends that I've accumulated my entire life, I'm only at 300, right?
Yeah.
So there's that. And these are 2,300 people that I don't know. I mean, literally, I knew, I think 2 people on Twitter before I started. And it's basically a lot of other people trying to market their books. And
so
then you kind of just, it's kind
become
of
a big community. as it were.
exactly. A big community.
And one of the things I've really heard about as far as like social media and advertising, because we have a friend that uses Instagram a lot, consistency.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those things where they say, if I'm not posting something every day, my content stops showing up in front of people, and then I start losing, followers, people that are looking at my account. Versus if you have something every day where you can go out and say, here's how I'm engaging people today.
Yeah.
Apparently, that's a big part of it, is showing that you are a consistent user to gain more consistent users.
Yeah, and that goes back to my reviewing as well. So I don't have something to say about my book every day, unfortunately at this point. But so I try to do reviews and put that out there. So people are seeing my name, and if I have my website on there, if people click on that, they can get to the books, and it's just kind of, anywhere I can sort of do that sort of thing. Yeah.
Sure. Are you comfortable talking about some roundabout estimates on dollars and cents?
Sure.
So what are your total costs for getting the book published, including penny and the illustrations, which you talked a little bit, you gave some ballpark figures there. And then also what, Linda, correct?
Mhm.
Yeah, what Linda ended up having as far as like costs go.
Yeah, so I'd say altogether it's about 5,000
Okay.
roughly to get everything. So yeah, that mainly is illustrations. Linda was way less than the illustrations cost. It's only a fraction of that, yeah. So that's mainly the roundabout figure, but was there other parts of the question?
No, just,
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. So next question, so we talked about this a little bit as well. When you self-publish, how do you get your book into stores? So it seems like being part of Ingram Spark was a big part of that.
Yeah, that was good. And then I just it was funny. I was like, okay, how am I going to get this book out there now that I have it? So libraries was the first thing. I literally went around, I donated books to every library in this area that I could, basically, which was great. And I got to meet a lot of people, and that's why I'm here. So that was really good. And then it was reaching out to bookstores. So I did call them. I said, I'm a new local author. And for the most part, bookstores, independent bookstores, are really welcoming. They will help out where they can. And actually, I didn't say this yet. I have 2 bookstore readings coming. I actually had one that was going to be on Saturday, but it moved to August 13th now. And that's up in Zillionople.
Okay.
It's called the Little Green Bookstore.
Okay.
And then right over here in Riverstone bookstore, it's going to be on the 30th. So Saturday the 30th at 9:30.
And that's this month, July, correct?
Yep.
Okay, great.
You tend to pre-print books and have a lot available there, or are people comfortable saying you can go online and buy them after?
So I haven't had to do it very much yet. That one's going to be the first bookstore one that I've done. but I will have some of both. I will definitely have, like, I have books with me today. It's funny, my mom, yeah, my mom says about, you should just have books all the time, you know? And for the most part, I do. I have 2 books in my car, just in case.
Just in case.
Another thing that was funny that, you know, once your friends know that you're a published author, what are they gonna buy you? T-shirts that say you're a published author. So my past birthday, I guess none of them talked to each other about the birthday present that they were getting for me. So I have 3 T-shirts that say some variation of author, published author, ask me about my book.
Yeah, ask me about my book.
I thought about wearing one tonight, but I decided it's under the button.
Yeah, there you go.
You should, I've been an elementary teacher for
Mhm.
33 years. And so you should ask librarians at all the schools in the late summer, not early fall, but late summer.
Okay.
Because that's when they plan their author visit for the year. And it's the librarians of the school that have the funding to do that. And that's what they do.
Yeah, I'm going to be at my daughter's school. So both my daughters go to Pine Richland. My youngest is at Hance Elementary, and I'm going to be the author for Author Days this coming year for that. So that would be pretty exciting. But yeah, to your question about taking books, I will have some. I already have some there. It's interesting the way that it works. Sometimes they are more interested in a consignment sort of deal where I would take books there, then once it's sold, they take a piece, I get the rest sort of deal. Or they can order directly from Ingram Spark. That's the other option. Or they might just buy them directly from me. There's a little shop in Mars called Novel Breads. I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with it. It's mainly a bakery, but she also sells books. They're local novel breads. So they're local authors. So I just sold a couple, about 4 of them to her. And that was another great, just local place that is very welcoming. And she posted on social media about it, which is great, right? So
Yeah,
you have
right.
other people. That's the way you do it. You have other people post about your things.
And then you get to then repost the thing they said about you.
Exactly.
And so the cycle keeps turning.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, a couple quick ones. Any rewrites for this book? And if so, how many?
Like I said, it was, and one thing I haven't touched on yet, the very last thing that I wrote on there was Keller notes. So on my phone is where I basically do a lot of my drafting. So if anyone had a question about, like, you know, where do you go? It's right here. And I go on the app called Keller Notes, and I do a lot of writing there with my reviews or the books. That's where I start. And yeah, I mean, there's definitely a process of, I'm trying to go for about 700 words. Like that was kind of, there's definitely ranges. Again, Reedsy, great reference for that, depending on what you're doing. So picture books, I think they say max about 1,000 words.
Okay.
So I was targeting about 700 as kind of the go-to for this. But then it has all kinds of other things. But yeah, so I kind of shoot for that and then edit down from there to get to the final product. And then, like I said, I used Fiverr as the final editing process.
Okay. I want to put these 2 questions together because they have a relationship to each other. Do you think that as the Michael John series continues, would you look into traditional publishing? And if so, are there any publishers that you have heard from people that you worked with that you would not approach? Specifically, the question was, what publishers have you heard to stay away from? If any.
Okay, so yes, I definitely, now that I have a book, something that I could show people, I will start to kind of look into traditional publishing just to see what's out there, you know, and go from there. But I haven't run into any specific publishers to stay away from. I know Scholastic is really hard to get into. I don't even know if, I'm not sure how you can do that.
Yeah, the owner of the book fairs.
Yes, exactly.
So,
Can you kind of give like the pros and cons of like self-publishing versus like traditional publishing?
It's a lot harder to traditionally
Yeah.
publish. I mean, but the pro for it certainly is they market the book. You are, I mean, you probably go to signings and things like that they plan for you and things like around that. But other than that, it's way less you having to market, and they will do that part of it.
Okay. Here's one that I don't think we've touched on at all at this point. It kind of goes to that idea of how do you keep your material from, being co-opted or taken by someone else. Copyright.
Mhm.
Is that something that like Linda helped figure out for you as they were putting together the final things, as you were getting to Amazon? I guess, how did you go about getting this story copyrighted as your unique work?
Yeah, I think that actually has a lot to do with the ISBNs. Once you kind of have that as this is that book, then that I think is where the copyright actually comes from.
So attaching it to that ISBN.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. There is a question here about Reader's Digest.
Okay.
I'm not sure whose question that is, if anybody wants to own it. Okay, so I guess just in terms of Reader's Digest, I guess maybe that is kind of like in terms of like, I know this used to be a thing, like there used to be magazines and they would have snippets of people's stories and say, if you're interested in learning more, like, would you ever consider, I guess, submitting a piece of this work to like, I guess like a compilation book or like a compilation magazine to say like, hey, here's some of my work that we've done. If you're interested in this, I have this many books. Please find me at this place.
Yeah, no, I would certainly be interested in doing things like that. I have reached out to different people on Twitter kind of about, especially like awards for books, because I have no idea how to submit even this book for different awards. Although I did recently just join the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, and I know that they have a specific award that I'm definitely going to put the book into. I have no idea, what it would be.
Yeah,
If
there's audience voting, you'll have to let us know.
Yes, I will certainly let everybody know to be involved.
This is a fun question. I like this one. What would you say is your interest in writing work? What's your bad writer habit?
I would say it's writing on my phone. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I literally, before I go to bed at night, I mean, I know some people are, looking at different things online, checking social media, which I also do that too. Yeah, no, that's literally, that's where my writing gets done. So it's not I have an office in my house. I work from home as my day job. Maybe that's why I don't want to go there for it, to step away from being in the office the whole time. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's what it is. And I love color notes. I basically from there, you can just say that you want to send it via email. So I'll email it to myself and then I'll just, if I have to do other writing after that, that's how I get it from there.
Sure. At what point do you think someone should call themselves a writer? And I guess my addition to that is at what point did you feel comfortable calling yourself a writer?
Once it was published. Once I could hold it in my hand, I mean, there was kind of, you can't really deny it when it's there.
Yeah.
and I didn't, a lot of friends and family had no idea I was writing. So everyone was really surprised whenever I posted. I was like, hey, by the way, I'm gonna have a book coming out in like a month, just FYI, sort of deal. But yeah, once I held it in my hand,
Once people could buy you the T-shirt and it was
yeah, there we go.
Okay.
Yes, once the T-shirt.
Yeah, once the T-shirt was real. What would you say are the most important elements of writing to you?
For a kid's book, make it interesting. When I was writing this, I was like, what would a 7-year-old me like? And that was kind of part of, I was not a big reader whenever I was young. And I think that had to do with it. I was not all that interested in a lot of the books that were out there.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of also was a reason why I was like, maybe I should write something that I would like if I was a kid. And that's why there's a sea dog named Bruce in there.
Yeah.
Literally.
If you guys have not had a chance to read the book yet, I would highly encourage you, read it before you go, flip through it. It's a charming book. I actually really enjoyed Bruce. I think we all imagine our childhood pets, especially as larger in life than they actually may have been. And I think that's a great theme for that there.
A really funny quick note
Yeah,
is
please.
that I wrote the book in 2018.
Mhm.
I now have a dog named Bruce.
Oh,
So
It
it,
looks very much, yeah.
so yeah, that was, I always wanted to have a dog named Bruce. And I just wrote it into existence. So there you go.
I think that's the secret, right? You thought it and you manifested it.
Yeah.
You had a dog named Bruce.
Yep.
And I think we've asked the variation of this a couple different times, but just in case it sparks something different in your mind, let me do this. What would you say is your most valuable tool as a writer?
One thing that I think creativity, I would say that that's it. And it comes in so many different ways. The having my dad dressed up as the pirate. I mean, that kind of was, it was so interesting. Life begot the art, and then art has begotten life again, real life. And that's, my dad was literally in Florida, and I called him and I was like, "You're retired now.
You don't do anything, right?
I immortalized you on the page. Would you like to actually walk around and visit with kids?" And so, like I said, he's retired. So he was like, "Sure, let's take it on the road." Yeah, the creativity, it just, whenever it sparks, wherever it sparks, that's another reason why I like having color notes, because yeah, who knows, whenever you're like, "Oh my gosh, that would be a great idea to insert into the story." Like the third book in the series has to do with going to Grandma and Pap's house for an overnight stay. And it's called A Night for a Night. So a KNIGHT for an NIGHT. And then I was like, well, that's the idea, right? That was where it started. And then I was like, well, it's funny, my grandparents' house on my mom's side, that could kind of look like a castle, right? So I'm gonna send her pictures. So Penny, I'm gonna be sending her pictures of that house. And that just kind of came to me at one point, and it's like, okay, that could work.
Sounds great. All right, well, I'm gonna check in really quick. Katie, any questions in the chat?
No, I think we are at time.
Okay.
Did we get through all of our?
We did. There were some variations of different questions here. If I did not ask your specific question, I apologize, but I feel like there was some of these that were the same one a couple different times. Mike, it has been lovely talking with you. I really appreciate you being here. And I just want to say thank you so much for coming in. I really enjoyed the talk.
Glad to be here.